today we're talking productivity, but with a bit of a plot twist. There's a reason why productivity advice can so often feel like just adding actually to the to-do list and maybe throwing in a side of guilt. But my guest today has written a book called Productivity Joy. And she invites us to think about joy not as a reward to doing all of the things, but as a strategy for productivity. And so I'm delighted to delve into this further with a beautiful human, a seasoned professional. She has Simi Rayat. She has decades of experience under her belt as an organizational psychologist, an executive coach, a founder of multiple businesses that she's sold, and is now founder and owner of a thriving well-being, executive coaching, and business consulting practice. And Simi and I have bumped into each other, connected through our networks over the last couple of years. And I've never left any of our chats anything other than energized and really uplifted and better educated. So Simi, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, Dashi, thank you so much. It's always a real joy to speak with you and the time that we have together. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Oh, yeah, Simi, you're the package, right? You've got the letters after your name, you've got the successful businesses, you bring such warmth and heart. Heard you start your stage speaking, sharing your identity as a proud Sikh woman, a wife and a mother of two. And all of that seems to me is what culminated in your first, I'm hope of many books, Productivity Joy. And so I want to get stuck right into that title, because it's not the natural word association that we put together with productivity. So tell us a bit about how you got there and why it should roll off the tongue for more of us.
So two things. Yes, you're right. Not many people associate productivity with joy, because I think quite often we associate productivity with doing more and faster. It can feel like we're not doing enough. And it can feel like an element of stress or pressure that we put on ourselves or others put on us. And whereas joy is really about how we feel. It's about the connection that we spark within ourselves. So yes, you're right. We don't normally put those two together. I wanted to put those two together because I absolutely believe, and the science shows, and hopefully we'll talk about the work in the book today, that they both can coexist, that you can get done what truly matters to you in a way which sparks your joy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, when we were looking at book titles, Dashi, I was working with my publisher, Wiley, and, I was advised that, okay, if you want to think of a book title, one way to think of that is also to think of potentially words that people don't put together, because then it captures people's attention as well. And joy has always been a word that's been very close to my heart and the work that I do with leaders and organizations. I help leaders and managers globally become more of a joy to work for and do business with. And when we were able to trial and test the formula that we share in the book, there was a lot of productivity gains that people were achieving. So to be able to combine those two together, it's been a wonderful, wonderful synergy. And my aim is to really help people understand the process in how they work, but also how they can spark and activate that joy along that journey.
Amazing. It definitely ticks the box for the words that you wouldn't put together and catches the eye. And I think so sort of provocative for the typical corporate leader or corporate worker that, as you mentioned, tends to think of productivity in that kind of output oriented, more to do how do I push myself to the limit to make the gains that tick the KPIs, whether inside the office or out. And I want to delve into the heart of your book and your, science-backed formula and daily ritual, which is predicated on the 5 Qs, 5 questions to ask yourself at the beginning of the day, ideally write down, which should take 5 minutes a day, that can have this profound impact of moving from that survival and productivity in that light to something much more sustainable and much more human. So can you share with us these 5 questions and their importance?
Yeah, would love to, Dashi. So the 5 Qs formula essentially is a way of activating your brain at the start of the day in a way which activates it to be intentional, present, and connected. So you are using that as an opportunity to rewire your mindset at the start of the day. Because the start of the day, and the research shows this, our minds are alert. They are ready to be primed. But quite often what we do is we reach out for our phones, or we open our inbox and check all those emails, and instantly we're getting triggered, even before we've enabled ourselves to set our own selves up for the day, to be kind of calm, intentional, and to be really balanced in our approach. So the 5 Qs formula, like you said, is a science-backed system, and it involves asking yourself 5 key questions at the start of your day. And a great way to remember those questions, or what those questions are about, is with the acronym PRIME. So we'll go through the acronym now. So P is for pinpoint your emotions and feelings. This isn't about going into a therapy session with yourself. There's always a time and place for that. But at the start of the day, what we're really encouraging and inviting you to do here is identify what emotion and what feeling you are experiencing. First and foremost, we're all human beings, and we are emotion beings. So without realizing it, our emotions and feelings are reacting and responding to the world around us all of the time. If we're not aware and able to check in with what our current emotional state is, quite often we can be led by those emotions throughout the day.
Yeah.
In our decision making, how we connect, how we approach tasks. So that initial check-in is really important. And in the book, we share a tool, a visual of an emotion ring and wheel, to really help, I think, make our language around emotions and feelings a little bit more sophisticated, rather than
Yes.
good,
Yeah, tired. And also, I think it kind of, right, so we've got five questions, prime, PRIME. So P is the pinpoint that emotion. And you're right, it can sometimes be a challenge to actually think of stuff, because again, a lot of, certainly in my experience, and maybe my own personal experience as well as the people I work with, we live up in our heads and we're already trying to rationalize.
Yeah.
And actually, I like the idea of that first thing in the morning. And it's actually just what are you feeling, even like in my body, and then kind of linking it to the emotion of just starting to open up like your whole self to kind of go, oh, where am I right now? And how do I start positioning myself for the day?
Absolutely. And the research shows that if you identify your emotion and your feeling, you're better than able to regulate it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So acknowledge it to regulate it. So that's the P.
Acknowledge it to regulate it.
The R is to help you cultivate a deeper level of gratitude. Now, many of us may practice, different gratitude rituals or exercises. Quite often we'll write down the things that we're grateful for in our life, the people that we're grateful for. That's really great. But what we've actually found with our research, and research from world leading neuroscientist, Dr. Andrew Huberman, his research also shows that by asking yourself two specific questions, you are able to cultivate a deeper level of gratitude, which increases the serotonin and the dopamine levels in your brain, the feel good, happy good, motivational neurotransmitters. And again, the morning time is the best time to do this. So there's two particular questions. And one of those is, who in your life inspires you to be a better version of yourself? And the second question is recalling a time when someone has expressed gratitude to you. So both of those questions are actually really important, because the first one, essentially, we notice our brain picks up on qualities in others, and we admire those qualities because essentially we've got those qualities within us. So it reinforces our self-worth, our self-belief, the confidence that we can do that. We perhaps may not have unlocked those qualities that we admire in others, but we have them within ourselves.
Yeah. And I really loved that elevation of gratitude, which is to say it's everywhere. I know I really value that gratitude practice, but it wasn't until I saw your double question that something really hit home for me, because I'd also seen oftentimes we can look at things in the negative, in that when you said, when we see something positive in others, it's because it's in ourselves. I've so much more often heard the opposite. When we come up against someone, when we're trying to navigate conflict, it's because thing in them is also maybe a shadow side of ourselves. And that reminds of acknowledging the positives about both someone else and yourself has a really big impact. It really elevates that idea of sometimes we can go through life, and when there is so much going on and we keep reminding ourselves, I know I should be grateful, I shouldn't complain, I've got lots to be grateful for, but this is that kind of moment to go, no, it's a relational thing. I'm putting impact into the world as well as people having impact on me. I'm remembering how good it feels when someone has helped me, and I'm now motivated to put some of that.
Absolutely. And we all have this human condition, Dashi, to feel of significance, to feel that we're making a difference and that we're having an impact. So that second question is, remembering a time when someone has expressed gratitude to you. That's a really quick reminder of, I'm actually making a difference.
Yeah.
What I do is valued. I matter, and what I do truly matters as well. So those two questions cultivate that deeper level of gratitude that are more sustainable throughout the day. So you don't just get that quick dopamine hit, but you get a longer sustained benefit once you ask yourself those two questions. And again, that part of the 5 Qs formula only needs to take 2 minutes.
Yeah. And I love that, actually, in the time that we're taking to really unpack this, and the book does that really well, is once these concepts start to come to play, actually what you're sitting down to do is just a few minutes every day. But so it helps to know it is only a quick thing, but also just how much is behind that. Like that 5 minutes is actually a super impactful one that can shift the trajectory of your day.
Yeah, absolutely. And the questions are so simple, but the science behind it, absolutely. And the order in which the questions, you go through them, really help to rewire the mindset in the best way possible.
Yeah. So we've had pinpoint, R,
recognize
the gratitude piece, and I
is for identify what's working well and what could be working better in your environment. So quite often when we wake up, because of the way our brain is wired, we're hardwired to look out for the negative things, the things that are not going well. Like, I feel exhausted, I haven't slept well, or it's really gloomy outside, I've got a really long, busy day. It's not that you're being negative, but your brain is hardwired to be negative. And this, relates back to our survival instinct. When we were cavemen, cavewomen, back in the day, we were on high alert. Our brain primary function was to keep us safe, small, and hidden, and to be on high alert of being gobbled up by a saber-toothed tiger. Now, in today's world, our brain is trying to keep us safe because it's latching on to that one email, perhaps that didn't land well, or that one awkward moment in the meeting, or just, some critical feedback that you've received. And then our brain hones in to the negative. So this particular question really helps bypass and hack the negativity bias at the start of your day. And we're being optimistic. So we're looking out for just the small positive things that are working well in your environment, but also recognizing what could also be better. Recognizing that we're not looking for perfection here. We're looking for progress.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that part of that daily thing. So you actually get to see that evolve, abuse it. So identify, and then the M and the E.
The M is to make a list of 3 high impact tasks that you're going to do in a day. And you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, Simi, I have way more than 3 things to do in a day. I get it. We all do. But this is really about helping you become very clear on what are the 3 things that are going to move the needle. What are the 3 meaningful tasks that you need to get done in the day that are going to be of impact? So it could be 3 things to do with work or 3 things to do at home in your personal life. But if we can narrow it down specifically to 3, what we're doing is we're being really clear on what's going to make the difference, and we're being very, very intentional. And if you think about it, Dash, if you do that, every single day of the week or 5 days of the working week, that's 15 high impact tasks that are completed. Over the course of the month, that's 60. And that's so fulfilling and motivating rather than having that never ending long to-do list. And although you're making progress, you still get to the end of the day and you feel unfulfilled.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
it can feel so cheap as well to be like, well, I've ticked loads of like little stuff off, but then you still end the day feeling unsatisfied. And sometimes it can be because you haven't done the thing that you really should have done and that would have made you feel actually that you can end your day in a more positive space than actually, even if the lots of little things that you technically ticked off happened.
Yeah, and look, again, it's not our fault. Our brain is doing its job. It's trying to do those quick things, those quick wins, so that we can feel productive.
Yeah.
To avoid that discomfort, for
Yeah.
us to feel productive. But really, the thing here is productivity isn't about doing everything. It's about doing what truly matters. And your brain doesn't need a longer to-do list or lots of noise. What it does need is literally a moment, not hours, but a moment, I would say 5 minutes, to intentionally be very clear on what 3 things you're going to focus on in your day for that day.
Yeah. And end us with the E. Before I go down another there's so many paths and rabbit holes I could go down right now. I wanted to we can't leave it at, but framing up the last one. E.
Yeah, the E is to envision how you want to show up for your day. Okay. So I always say that people really remember how you make them feel. And, if we're very intentional about our energy, about the superpowers that we all have and the values that are important to us, if we're able just to remind ourselves of those at the start of the day, we can hold ourselves a little bit to account that we're going to keep those at the forefront of our mind as we continue with the day. So any challenges that happen personally or professionally, we show up in that spirit. And we might still get it wrong. We might still react and all of this. We're human. That's okay. But you're increasing your chances of being able to respond to situations and respond to your day rather than react.
For me, my takeaway when we see Prime in its entirety, and as you've really poignantly keep emphasizing that when that human reaction to look at the negativity bias, to kind of think of ourselves as having too much on the plate, that one, not actually beating ourselves up about that, because actually that is how we are wired. And so this actual act of just sitting down and taking those few minutes is your chance, an opportunity to that and in a positive way and reframe those things for our day. And it also, for me, kind of got to that heart of sort of what I mentioned at the outset. We keep thinking about productivity as this never-ending to-do list. And I feel like actually that's how I've operated for most of my life until I got into all of this stuff. It's all about getting rid of the things on the to-do list, and then so that we can create the time to experience the joy at the other end. But it feels like we've kind of been sold. That's kind of a scam, because actually, if we're living our life right, the to-do list should never be done. Like to the day, if you've done your to-do list before you're dropping dead, then something's gone wrong along the way. And so and you emphasize in your book this concept of energized productivity. It's not just about efficiency and doing the stuff faster. It's about going, and that's what you say, thinking about the meaningful things, that gratitude, all these things that kind of are priming you to feel ready to get stuck in, as opposed to, oh my God, I've got a day today, a day of back-to-back meetings. I've got what at home sick. I'm like doing that juggle is going, all of that is just always going to be, but how do I actually still through all of that, do something to keep pushing me along in that sustainable way? So like, why is that nuance so important for us to keep in mind, that difference between energized productivity versus efficiency?
So I think with energized productivity, we are doing the things that truly matter. So they're meaningful, right, to us. We're doing them in a way that sparks our joy because we're a lot more connected and present with what we're doing. So when you've primed your mindset at the start of the day, it enables you to be intentional. Like you're focused, you're in the moment. So, you may have 101 things on, but you know that actually you're going to do 3 things that day. And question, make a list of the 3 things that you're going to do. That particular question also gives you the permission to stop, like put down the tools. When you've done your 3 high impact tasks, have a break, reward yourself, or go for a walk, pick up that hobby that you have been meaning to do, spend time with your loved one. But what happens is we keep going.
Yeah.
Like we just keep going and going and going. And when we do that, we think that we're driving efficiency, but actually what we're doing is we're slowly burning ourselves out. So it leads to higher levels of stress and overwhelm. And because that never-ending to-do list is never ending,
Yeah.
it then drains us. You think, well, what have I achieved?
Yeah.
You know that you've done so much in your day, but then you get to the end of it, you're like, what did I actually achieve?
I think that for me, I suspect that 3 things is probably one of the harder questions for a lot of high achieving leaders to get on board with. And I'm really curious to know how if that has been your experience, what are the resistance through your coaching work where you are actually putting these together and discovering all of these results? I'm curious to understand like what the resistance was. It sounds so simple, but actually, how do you coach people through that? No, I can't do 3 things. It's a million. Or no, once I'm done, it means I've now got more time to do more things rather than stop.
Yeah, look, I think it was interesting. We started to develop the formula 4.5 years ago, just at the start of the pandemic. And, people were obviously experiencing a lot of challenge and, a lot of change during that period. And we trialed and tested it on 100 of our clients globally. This included business leaders, so corporate leaders, business owners, working professionals, working parents, teachers, and students across all of those groups. And what they found was, after applying the formula for 3 months and applying that 5 minutes of time, the results showed that they were so much better at focusing their attention, achieving the things that were going to move the needle. And they reported feeling a lot more fulfilled and satisfied with their lives and what they were able to achieve. And we've got a whole chapter dedicated to each of the steps in the 5 Qs formula. The chapter on that question of what are the 3 high impact tasks is quite a lengthy one to really help each and every person who reads the book and wants to apply the formula to get very clear on how they identify their top 3 things. And it might be that you do your top 3 things, you have a break, and then you do something else, you identify another top 3 things. But we found that, the people that really prioritize what those top 3 things are on a daily basis, they're always the ones that are able to do things that make a change, have an impact. And you know what? They don't actually have to be really big things, Dashi. It might be, that one of the things that you want to achieve that day is that you've got a meeting with a colleague, with a team member, and you really want to make sure that they feel seen, heard, recognized, and valued, and they're clear on what their contribution is. That could be one of your things.
Yeah.
If there is larger things, for example, like creating a strategy or creating a marketing plan, those are larger tasks, and it's, a bit too much to ask yourself to do that in one complete sitting. So break larger tasks into the smaller tasks so it makes it more manageable. But really looking at, what are those things? Because if those are the 3 things that you can be really committed to in your day. If you achieve other things on top of that, amazing. If you don't, you know what? You can still feel fulfilled and satisfied and accomplished because you've done what you knew needed to matter for that day.
Yeah. And you really just got to try it first and sort of see for yourself and watch it and measure it and engage for yourself that change. Because sometimes it is hard when you've been doing things one way more of your life and you've experienced success doing that. It can be really scary to say, not only try something different, but try something that actually is more consolidated, is less than. We kind of think of progression as continually loading up more and more and more. And it can be really confronting, I think, to have to actually pick the 3 and pick or even less sometimes. I try and challenge myself that way too, because it's also an opportunity to mix that work and life sometimes as well, because we always just think of the Outlook calendar.
Absolutely.
But actually it might be actually that getting to bed on time tonight is actually a really key thing, because I've had late nights and I'm not showing up that I need to for home or and kind of thing. I want to delve a bit more into the joy here. And I'm really curious to know through your work how much of your own kind of personal journey has impacted, your philosophy on leadership and driven the way in which you targeted your research into this. And it's partly from my personal perspective, I see another, South Asian woman brought up in the UK. I think we were both brought up in the UK. And joy as a strategy didn't feature heavily. And I know through my work that it doesn't feature heavily for a lot of people. And so I would like to know if joy is something that you have, to prioritize in your life. And either if so or if not, how do you claim it or reclaim it in adulthood when we're facing all the responsibilities that we are?
Yeah, I think it's really important to become clear on when I use the word joy, what I mean. So joy is really about presence and connection, being alive to that present moment. So being really in tune with who you are, what you're doing, and the impact that you're having on those around you, whether that be your children, your family, in the workplace, clients, peers, whoever it is. But it's really being alive to connection with yourself and connection with others. Okay. Now, 4.5, 5 years ago, we were living in the UK, in London, in a 2-bedroom apartment, and in trendy transient suburb of Chiswick in West London. And on the outside, it looked like I had it all: the successful business, also the corporate work that I was doing, 2 young kids, wonderful husband. But I was stressed and I was overwhelmed a lot of the time. And, I remember specifically one Friday evening coming home after a really long, exhausting day, at work, and it was really cold, typical winter's evening in London. You'll remember, Dashni. And I opened the door to the apartment, and I saw all of this kind of, nuts down the hallway. Like shoes there and toy over there and bags off their hook, half a broken umbrella. And I could hear all this joy and laughter coming from the lounge room. And honestly, I was just furious. I threw down my bag and I charged down the hallway, opened the door to the lounge, and there was my husband and my 2 kids. And they're rolling around on the floor, and they stopped in mid-roll, and they looked up at me in tandem, and then they said, "Oh, here comes the bull." And oh my God, zero excitement, complete disappointment on their face. I was absolutely mortified, really was. And they said it in jest. They absolutely said it in jest. They loved me then and they adore me now. But it was in that moment, Dashi, that I realized it was a complete mirror moment for me that unfortunately my loved ones weren't getting the best of me. And I was out there in the world, helping leaders be the best versions of themselves and doing all of this work and practicing as a psychologist for the last 20 years. But quite frankly, I wasn't applying those tools and strategies to me. And, that was in that moment, I had, a very important life lesson. It was very transformative for me that I had become not a joy to be around and be with. So that's when I knew that something needed to change and the change needed to start with me. And I knew that I needed to, look at the research. I knew the research.
Yeah.
I knew the studies, but I wanted to see what was out there. So I started to research what high performers were doing, what top athletes were doing to prime their mindset at the start of the day. And a lot of people do wonderful things. They'll be doing yoga, meditation, exercise, their morning coffee. There's, a lot of fantastic habits that people are putting into play. But what was missing, and this was the gap in the research, was there wasn't a science-backed, proven way, a structured way to prime your mindset at the start of the day so you are connecting with your emotions, focus, energy, and attention for the day. So that's where I started to look at the research and started to play with putting together a way and putting together questions. And then over 4.5 years, we trialed and tested the formula, and we changed the order of the questions. We curated the questions to really get them to a point where we were very confident that each of those questions in the sequence of the PRIME acronym really support, activate, and rewire the mindset for joy, effectiveness, and intentionality.
The geek in me just loves hearing the bit behind the snapshot. And it means so much to me in a world where there's so many acronyms and do this, 5 minutes a day, X, Y, Z, and just to kind of to have, and that's why I said you're that package, right? You've done the work, you've got the research, and then it's about piecing it together. And I also thank you for sharing that personal story because it really certainly resonates with me, and I've definitely been there, and like you, I think, I buy into all of this stuff. You really actively try, but it is it has to be habitualized in order to maintain. Definitely.
It does. And when I was doing my research, Dash, and it's also speaking with my clients that I was working with, I knew that it wasn't just me that felt like this.
Okay.
And, the research shows, the Global HR Talent Report 2024 shows a staggering number of professionals, which is 82% of professionals globally feel stressed, overwhelmed, and are at the brink of burnout.
82%.
8 out of 10 people feel stressed, overwhelmed, at the brink of burnout. And when we feel like this, we're not able to, it impacts our performance. We're not able to show up with creativity, making good decisions, being able to take care of our well-being. and being able to make the positive impact and difference that we want to make. And, it costs Australian organizations up to $60 billion annually in lost productivity, disengagement. So I knew that we really needed to do something here. So my hope is that, what if we can flip the script?
Yeah.
And what if 82% of people globally, busy professionals, feel fulfilled, energized, full of joy, and effective for their day? Because that's what makes people experience joy and be more of a joy to be around.
Simi, you're on a mission to empower 5 million professionals. I see there's a prevalence of number 5 here. 5 questions,
Yes.
5 minutes a day, 5 million professionals. And I think the reason that almost that 82% really sticks with me, it doesn't totally surprise me. It's somewhere that, we're hearing all about. But why that shift and just churning into that shift to get so many more people on board with this is that actually sometimes what happens when the whole world is operating, when 82% of the world is operating at that level, it starts to become normalized. And so you can't use it. You're like, well, that means you're doing it right because everyone else is doing it. So just dig in before we close out on 5 million professionals. What does that look like for you over the next 5 years?
I love that you said over the next 5 years. The mission's really important, Dashi, because, I was there. I was the bull, and I know that's not just me. So many others go through that, feel like that. And by being intentional, putting the prime formula, 5Qs formula, and I started it on me first before I shared with anyone else. I needed to know that, does this work for me first? Because initially I was looking for a solution for myself. And then when the research and the trials showed the effects and the impact that it was having on all of these other people, I knew that this was something so important that I wanted it to help equip and empower as many people as possible. So the Global Joy of Work mission, which I'm so, so pleased, and it was beautiful to see your smiley, amazing face and energy at the Singapore launch.
Yeah, it was amazing.
We've done the launches in Melbourne and Sydney, Singapore. We've got Perth later this year and New Zealand. And we've got India and the US on the horizon as well. And the reason for this is, Dashi, a lot of leaders in organizations, a lot of working professionals, we spend more than 70% of our waking day either at work or thinking about work. If we're not a joy to be around and do business with, just imagine the impact that unknowingly, unintentionally we are having. But what if we flip the script and we're able to spark our own joy at the start of the day, and then we're able to connect with others, we're able to do work in a way that truly matters? That absolutely has this ripple effect of equipping leaders to be strong, connected, emotionally in tune leaders. And it enables their teams to really feel that their leader cares about them. Engagement increases, productivity increases, innovation increases. And at the end of the day, we're creating an environment that we can all have a stronger, more connected impact on ourselves and on each other.
Boots on the ground, traveling the world, getting that message out and building that community. It was a joy to be at that book launch in Singapore and see just such a breadth of leaders. There are people that, you're singing to the choir, and then there was that whole range of really senior corporate leaders who are starting to, you could sort of see in that room pennies starting to drop. And that's what made that so exciting for me, I must say, Simi. And so I'm really so thrilled to have had you share that with us and for you to put that work out there. I took a lot out of it, and there is so much. The book itself just breaks down all the things in such a user-friendly way and invites us to so much more. It really is for me, that finding that alignment, finding, what are your really understanding what brings connection and joy. Because I think I think it was great to really put that definition out there, because people get to define that for themselves, and then it means success is also on your own metrics of what joy is to you.
Exactly.
You get this kind of corollary effect of one of my
Yeah.
passion things, which is authenticity, self-awareness. So
And that's your joy.
and that's my joy, absolutely. And so
Correct.
that's what I love. I think anyone that picks it up will find the connection that works for them. So I'm really excited to be part of your community, and we'll reconnect between now and the next 5 years to see that number tally up, and I'd love to start to see those survey results shift from the age. And so to close us out, Simi, as you know, the title of this podcast is Unbiased, and I really believe in that shift from judgment to curiosity. We ought to have more questions than answers. And what I'm looking for out of this podcast is for people to kind of go and take away a conversation starter when they go. And so I'd say, aside from the 5 questions in the Prime model, I ask each of my guests to leave us with a question that you think we should be asking more of in our day-to-day life.
I love this question. Thank you. What's influencing what you see? I think we need to get better at asking ourselves that question. So what's influencing what we see? Okay. Because that gives an opportunity for us to reflect on our biases, on our stories, the beliefs that we hold. It makes us become, or it encourages us to become more intentional. Yeah. And it gives an opportunity for an expansion of our thinking, changing our perspectives, challenging our beliefs, challenging our biases. Do you know what? Actually, it just really helps us understand ourselves better. And if we're really to experience true joy and be a joy out there, we need to start with knowing ourselves deeply. So I hope that question is very helpful.
That's a massive question. I actually feel like I should collate these questions and then end up and having an episode just diving into each of them, because it comes right at the end of the podcast. So what's influencing what you see? That is such a poignant question for today's world of information overload, being more discerning. I feel like it's a dinner table question with kids. Thank you for leaving us with that. What's influencing what we see? Simi, thank you so much for taking time out to share with us today. I can't wait to pick up this conversation in the future.
Thank you, Darshi. It's always such a pleasure to speak with you and be with you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. I derive so much energy from speaking to such inspiring guests and having really meaningful and challenging conversations. If you felt the same way, my ask of you is to please subscribe to this podcast, either here or wherever you download your podcast content from. Unbiased is a labour of love for me, and the impact that these perspectives have depend on reaching as many eyes and ears as possible. So your support is invaluable. Until next time, stay curious.